today, Dallas Mavericks fans, MFFLs? Go ahead and smash that like button, the subscribe button, the comment section before we get rolling. Obviously, this is not going to be one of the easiest ones to do because the hardest games to I guess you want to say to talk about as a fan, to discuss, are the ones where you get just completely dominated. Game 1 of the NBA Finals was last night. The Dallas Mavericks fell to the Boston Celtics. Final score, Boston 107, Dallas Mavericks 89. The best way to describe it, obviously, is just a rout. And to me, in the best way, and I'm going to describe it in a rout only because the biggest issue I saw with the Dallas Mavericks last night was this team, once they got punched in the mouth, obviously, we know it's the NBA Finals. The Boston Celtics, we're talking about a team with the best record in the NBA throughout the entirety of the season, 64 wins. The Dallas Mavericks are going to have their hands full, obviously, because you're getting a guy returning, a Kristaps Porzingis, who last night played stellar based on what his role is. And we're talking about a guy, obviously, when he was with the Dallas Mavericks, this is a guy we're looking to be that number 2 option to a Luka Doncic. And obviously in the Boston Celtics, he finds himself in a much better position because he's not asked to be that guy night in, night out. You're talking about a team with Jason Tatum, a team with Jaylen Brown, who I feel personally is probably one of maybe the best player on that team overall. But a Jaylen Brown, a Jason Tatum, and then you're adding a Drew Holiday, a Derek White, an Al Horford, again, just the veteran that he is, even at 38 years old. And then adding a Kristaps Porzingis, who to me just takes them completely over the top. We're talking about a guy that's being asked to be your 3rd, 4th option on most nights. This is a guy that last night, Kristaps Porzingis came in and he put his, put his footprints in on this game from the very beginning. I kind of had the idea that a Kristaps Porzingis was going to be the X factor for the Boston Celtics because obviously he's going to be able to add a different aspect that they didn't have, him dealing with these injuries and being out this entirety pretty much of the postseason for a big stretch of this postseason for the Boston Celtics. And you're now having a different animal to have to deal with Kristaps Porzingis returning to the lineup. And then you kind of saw earlier on, it was more of a situation where Joe Mazzulla, the head coach of the Boston Celtics, he was using Kristaps Porzingis to pretty much box out and X out what Derek Lively could be as a factor and kind of matching up those minutes. And I felt that was an early chess move that I will give Joe Mazzulla a lot of credit for because Derek Lively has been very vital to the Dallas Mavericks' success up to this point. And when you're taking him out of the mix, you're going to now have yourself in a position where you're having to actually rely on other guys like a PJ Washington, where we need you to come out here and have some big games. We need a Derrick Jones Jr. to have these big games. You're going to be asking a guy potentially in a Kyrie Irving, obviously, who had a terrible outing last night. And I can talk about Kyrie Irving's failure to show up last night. But at the end of the day, it's still game 1. The Dallas Mavericks, again, are going to have another opportunity to kind of get themselves back in the mix. You already knew you were playing a little bit behind it because you were going to be on the road. That at the TD Garden, the Boston Celtics fan base, regardless of your opinions that's a tough place to play. It's not easy to be able to play for Boston and play in Boston. I mean in that arena, especially dealing with the passing of a guy like Bill Walton, who obviously it's going to add a little bit more oomph to that franchise. They have a little bit more to play for, a little more to prove, and just that crowd in general. You know, they get loud and rowdy, and you know, again, once the Boston Celtics start rolling, that team is going to be hard to beat on the road. So I'm not going to say it's anything that I didn't foresee happening potentially. I mean, not coming in a game 1 loss. Maybe not in the way that the first quarter went, which I felt, to me personally, that's probably the biggest difference in what this final score ended up being, because we can get into some of the positives if you want to look for any positives going into game 2. But the Dallas Mavericks, again, failed to the Boston Celtics in game 1 of the NBA Finals. Final score, Boston 107, Dallas Mavericks 89. But like I said, before we get going, go ahead and smash that like button. These are the hardest ones to do after a loss, but especially after a loss in the fashion that we took it. So I want you guys to go ahead and pump up those likes. Continue to keep the momentum, the motivation to get these videos rolling, because sometimes it can get very hard to continue to, I guess you want to say, keep this thing rolling when you start to feel a sense of maybe desperation. And I don't want to get too deep into that because, again, it's just one game, but there are some things the Mavericks are going to have to clean up. So go ahead and let me know down below in the comment section as well. Who do you felt was biggest to blame for the loss for the Dallas Mavericks last night? Was it the coaching? What did you feel, again? If obviously we can kind of go in the obvious direction, some people are going to be obviously hitting on, especially media today, Kyrie Irving not showing up. Was it a guy like PJ Washington? Was it a Derrick Jones Jr., a Daniel Gafford, a guy like Derek Lively? Let me know down below in the comment section, but I appreciate you guys for all the support. we can take a look at exactly what the stat sheet was last night. Luka Doncic, 30 points, 10 rebounds, 1 assist. This was the lowest assist game Luka Doncic has had in his playoff career. I'm not going to expect that again going forward, but I will say there were a lot of things that the Boston Celtics were doing to this offense last night that did not allow Luka Doncic to be able to get other guys involved. We saw the Boston Celtics make I guess you want to say pay a very close attention and make it a very valid point of their defense to blitz Luka Doncic, make him work on the other side of the ball. And that's what I'm going to say. The Dallas Mavericks, to me, at the end of the day, when you watch a guy like Kristaps Porzingis and the impact he had, I don't feel like the Dallas Mavericks made him work as much as they could. But obviously, it's not really that simple because they have so many guys that can play on that end. You're talking about a Jaylen Brown, a Jason Tatum, the length that they have. Then you're talking about a Drew Holiday, which we know the defensive, just the guy that he is. Derek White, very solid guy. Al Horford understands body positioning, and we saw some shots last night. I believe there were possessions that kind of was a statistic that showed Al Horford pretty much in one-on-one coverage or somewhat one-on-one coverage. Just again, to me, that goes without a little bit of context because you're watching a lot of switches, and then you're seeing Luka Doncic trying to get some one-on-one shots off when the rest of the guys are not rolling or even really getting themselves involved. But it showed the stat sheet. I believe was Luka Doncic was 1 of 8 on Al Horford. That is not something that can go into game 2. I'm going to give a little bit of leeway just because when you're looking at what we've seen from Jason Kidd, just what's his entirety of his career with the Dallas Mavericks as a head coach in these first few years of his career as a coach, obviously. Jason Kidd is a guy that kind of likes to follow the ebbs and flows of a series, ebbs and flows of games. He kind of tries to figure out where he can adjust in certain spots. But Luka Doncic last night, I believe, we're going 12 of 26 on field goals, 38 minutes. We are going to have to see heavy minutes from Luka Doncic. That's just the way it is. There's 4 games left. I'm telling you, you're looking for 4 more wins is what you're looking for, excuse me. So Luka Doncic is going to have to come in here and be as aggressive as he can be because the Boston Celtics are not going to give this team anything. But Luka Doncic last night, 4 of 12 on 3. You saw in the second half, the Dallas Mavericks made a major push. The Boston Celtics, I believe, go, 29, 30 points, something like that. And the Dallas Mavericks take that lead all the way down to 8 points. But at that same juncture of the game, you saw no one else really getting themselves involved. And it was one of those situations where I guess you want to say, kind of take me back to those eras, the short era we're talking about of Luka Doncic in the small amount of time he's been with this team, where it seems like he's going to have to do everything, whether it's just scoring the ball and also trying to get guys involved. But at the end of the day, the Boston Celtics, they did not allow the Dallas Mavericks to get into that pick and roll offense which we become very accustomed to. We're talking about they did not trap. Lots of those situations where sometimes you have seen Luka Doncic, when he gets off the pick, he cuts to the basket, and all of a sudden everyone collapses, leaving guys open in the corners. You're seeing letting the roll man go, and those are easy lobs for Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving to make, and also just being able to hit guys like PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr., some of these other shooters on the perimeter. The Boston Celtics, I will give them lots of credit for taking that away. They made this more of a situation where you're going to have to say Luka Doncic is going to have to beat these one-on-ones, and if he's finding double coverage, sometimes we're going to have to need other guys to step up, which took me to one of the most disappointing efforts I saw from a guy like Kyrie Irving. Obviously, we know the history he has with Boston. I believe now taking his record since leaving Boston to it's 11-0. I mean 0-11, excuse me. You're looking at Kyrie Irving last night. What is it? 12 points, 6 of 19 on field goals, 0 of 5 from 3 in 37 minutes, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Kyrie Irving, I don't know what exactly the demons are he's dealing with when it comes to battling and playing against the Boston Celtics, but I think a lot of it is going to have to do with, obviously, you hear some of the chatter, some of the inside and outside noise. But at the same time, I do believe some of that length alone, it just bothers him a little bit. And Kyrie Irving, he's going to have to figure it out because the same run I'm talking about with the Dallas Mavericks get themselves back into the mix of the game, and you're starting to see them, I guess you want to say, a few chinks in the armor of the Boston Celtics. We needed Kyrie Irving to come along for the ride, and he did not. There were some wide open missed threes. There were just some easy buckets. There were some terrible turnovers by him. And one thing you have never been able to say, Kyrie Irving being sloppy with the ball. Last night, it was even on the dribble. His handles last night were just off. We see him slipping and falling all over the ground, all over the floor. We see him just turning the ball over, and I'm going to say unwarranted turnovers, not unforced turnovers in that same mindset. Kyrie Irving's going to have to be better. Daniel Gafford, I can get into Daniel Gafford, but at the end of the day, I already came into this game, into this series with some worries maybe, because Daniel Gafford is not really a guy I'm going to be looking at and saying he is going to be able to be a major focal point, because the biggest issue with Daniel Gafford is his foot. As we're talking about athleticism, we know he's very athletic in the sense of being able to play under the basket and around the rim, but getting out on the perimeter, having to cover a guy like a Kristaps Porzingis, who I'm going to feel obviously we're going to have to see more defensive effort, and which is where Derek Lively is going to come in, and I'm going to talk about him in a second. Daniel Gafford, he's going to have to be more physical on the rebounding. One thing I'm going to say that kind of allowed the Boston Celtics to get rolling in that first quarter, we got some stops, we forced some misses, but we continued to give up momentum because we gave offensive rebound after offensive rebound after offensive rebound. And that's where the Boston Celtics took off a little bit. You can go look at how the quarter breakdown, I guess. The biggest difference, if you look very closely, pay attention to this. The Dallas Mavericks in the very first quarter scored 20 points. The Boston Celtics scored 37 points, almost 40 points in the first quarter. A lot of that was guys just getting hot. Kristaps Porzingis came in, defensive effort. We saw him blocking shots. We had some guys that were going at him towards the rim. He's making these defensive plays. But again, we saw a lot of switches. The Boston Celtics were using it to their advantage. Whether you saw was a Josh Green on him, you saw a Jaden Hardy at certain points. You saw Luka Doncic on him at certain points, and Kristaps Porzingis was just rising up with that 7'2" height and 7'3" height, I believe, and just that long wingspan, and rising up and taking these jumpers over the smaller defender, and there was nothing you could do about it once he started to roll, knocking down 3-point shots. And then what also hurt the Dallas Mavericks in that first quarter, you see guys like Derek White, who has never seen a 3-point shot that he's not comfortable taking, especially with the way, I guess you want to say, the format and the way this Boston Celtics rotation is lined up. And then you see a Hauser come in off the bench, knocking down some threes. That to me is the difference in this game. It's not anything that the Dallas Mavericks, to me personally, I'm going to say this, maybe speaking from my optimistic side as a fan, there's not anything I feel like the Dallas Mavericks should come in here and just tear everything down. There are just some adjustments Jason Kidd is going to have to make. But the Dallas Mavericks, this is not a game where I felt like it was nasty throughout the entirety of it. Because again, once the Dallas Mavericks start to play Dallas Mavericks basketball in the second half, that's the difference. 37 points in the first quarter cannot happen. You're on the road against the best team in the league, the best record in the entire NBA. We're talking about a team, I believe, the Boston Celtics had the #1 rated offense in the league this year, and the #3 defense. So that's great balance. You're going to have to come in here, attention to detail. That is the biggest issue the Dallas Mavericks did not take care of in that first quarter. And I'm going to say again, I'm going to give Jason Kidd the benefit of the doubt because we've seen some terrible losses. I believe we lost the first game to the Clippers, a big, nasty loss. So again, it's not like as if this is foreign to us. We've seen this before, and the Dallas Mavericks are usually able to come back and show some heart and show some fight. But, excuse me, this is going to be one of these where it's going to show your heart. Game 2 is going to be all about heart. Game 2 is going to show what this team is really made of, because we could talk about home court advantage. If you come in here and you lock down exactly what you need to do, sometimes, again, we say home court advantage is not lost until a team loses at home. If the Dallas Mavericks go down 2 games to the Boston Celtics, this is a very good road team in the Boston Celtics. I'm still going to be as confident as I am because, again, you're going to have to show me that Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and the rest of the guys around him are not going to be able to get it done at home. But if that's going to be the formula, we're going to have to pull off a game in game 2 against the Boston Celtics, because I don't care how it is. 1-point win, a late game buzzer beater, whatever it is, you have got to come in here with more attention to detail. Like I said, just look at the breakdown. 37 points to the Boston Celtics in the first quarter, 20 for the Dallas Mavericks. Second quarter, the Boston Celtics scored 26 points, Dallas Mavericks 22. The third quarter, Dallas Mavericks 24 points, 23 points scored by the Boston Celtics. In the fourth quarter, obviously you're talking about putting in backups and things like that, but the Dallas Mavericks scored 23 points, Boston Celtics 21 points. This was a game that just got away from you early. And I guess you can say that's kind of to be expected because it's a team, lots of things to play for. They're at home, rowdy crowd, game 1 of the NBA Finals. They did have a loss in the NBA Finals a couple years ago to the Golden State Warriors, a series I'm sure they felt they probably should have taken advantage of. This was a lot to play behind, but the Dallas Mavericks have got to be better. PJ Washington, last night, 14 points, 5 of 11 on field goals. The biggest thing I saw from PJ Washington, There were some moments in the game where he played aggressively, but I felt he wasn't comfortable on these wide open shots. The Boston Celtics were allowing some of these. Once the driving kick actually did happen, and the Dallas Mavericks, you could tell, start to get a little bit more comfortable. PJ Washington failing to knock down some of these outside looks. A Maxi Kleber coming off the bench, a guy that's gonna have to be much better. You saw sometimes there were some wide open perimeter shots for Maxi Kleber. He refused to even look at the rim. That to me is concerning, because if you're talking about beating a team like the Boston Celtics, you're going to need everybody aggressive, everybody confident, and everybody locked in. Maxi Kleber last night, he's going to have to be much better. But PJ Washington, I guess you want to say 14 points, 5 rebounds, 8 rebounds overall. I mean, 5 defensive rebounds. And then you're looking at a guy in PJ Washington. I will give him 4 of 6 from the free throw line. This is going to be something that Dallas Mavericks are going to have to be very careful of, because when you're looking at what PJ Washington is going to be for this team, we're going to need another guy. Who else can come along for the ride? Because like I said, the Boston Celtics are deep. We're talking about a 5-man offense. They run that 5-out offense with nothing but scores along that entire lineup. We cannot have Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, maybe a PJ Washington, and then calling it home. We've seen us win some series like that. But if you're going to win that way, you're going to have another guy come along for the ride. I truly believe it. And a Derek Lively last night. Of course, you see national media giving him lots of attention. Such a young guy, 20-year-old rookie, all NBA second team defensive rookie team, all NBA second rookie team, I will say. A guy who's been a defensive player and a defensive impact player for the Dallas Mavericks on this run so far to the NBA Finals. Derek Lively last night ends up with 5 fouls, and to me, that was the difference in the game. When he picked up that 4th foul, I kind of hoped Jason Kidd would take him out, but I will give him the benefit of the doubt again, like I said, because I kind of understood Jason Kidd was just trying to find anything at that point. And I will give Derek Lively some credit, because if you're watching the actual game, not the stat sheet, not the box score, you're watching Derek Lively come in last night. He did not play fearful when it came to the defensive side of the ball, but I'm going to say last night was the first time you saw him look like a rookie really on this playoff run. Whether it was sometimes it was just bad plays, and at the worst times. We saw again, and whether you want to get into officiating, I don't like to get into officiating because I don't feel that's where the Dallas Mavericks lost this game last night. Derek Lively last night, we get a nice rebound, and all of a sudden you see guys kind of chapping at him a little bit, kind of reaching for his arms. He's, instead of just getting the ball out of his hands, he's looking for a guy. Ends up with a bad traveling opportunity, a bad traveling violation, and this is when the Dallas Mavericks were starting to get themselves back in the game. And also, one thing you saw last night, Derek Lively was a little bit too mouthy for my liking based on what we've become accustomed to from him. He's usually a guy that locks in. He's not really trying to let the outside sources and outside variables get to him. But last night, you see him chirping at the refs a little bit too much. He felt calls weren't going our way. He felt he wasn't getting the benefit of the doubt, because one thing I will say, the Boston Celtics, Jaylen Brown especially, you saw him go into the body of a guy like Derek Lively lots of times. And I think JJ Redick made a point of it last night. Derek Lively picked up a couple fouls, especially when Jaylen Brown is driving to the basket, goes into his chest. At some point, and JJ Redick says, you're going straight up. You can go straight up, but when a guy goes into your chest, what happens? Your arms are naturally going to come down. The refs making these foul calls, again, when you're now in a momentum situation where you're trying to get back in the game, but Derek Lively cannot let the officiating get to him. He cannot let the game get to him. We're going to have to make some adjustments. So if we're going to have any success, I believe what Derek Lively last night in 18 minutes, 1-on-1 on field goals, 2 points, 5 rebounds, just a game that nobody should be happy about. Nobody should be proud of at all. And then looking at the Boston Celtics, what they were able to get done, you're looking at saying a Jason Tatum last night. 16 points, and we can get into the stat pad, and I felt they were kind of trying to do in the end. You're talking about a 20-point lead for the Boston Celtics late in the fourth quarter. You still see Jason Tatum out there playing against pretty much our second team, Jaden Hardy, Dante Exum, and these guys. But it was a group effort. Porzingis is going to be a guy we're going to have to worry about. In 21 minutes last night, 20 points, 8 of 13 on field goals, 2 of 4 from the three-point line, plus 13. Jaylen Brown leading the team with 22 points last night, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. Let's go down the line. Derek White, 15 points, 5 assists. You're looking at a Drew Holiday, 12 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Keep going. Al Horford, who ended up getting the start last night, trying to work Kristaps Porzingis back in the mix. 10 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. That was just team ball. Like I said, you have a Sam Hauser coming off the bench pretty much as well. Again, to me, he was a catalyst in that first quarter. 16 minutes, 8 points, 2 of 2 on 3-pointers. The Dallas Mavericks, I won't say we had terrible defense, because some of those shots that the Dallas Mavericks were giving up, they weren't just necessarily wide open shots. It was just the Boston Celtics that have the momentum rolling early, and the Dallas Mavericks are now trying to find themselves, I guess you want to say, some solid footing. And the biggest issue came from when these shots start to fall. What do you have to do as the road team? You have to stay engaged. You have to continue to talk. You have to continue to pay attention to your details. And I feel like that's where the Dallas Mavericks got a little bit sloppy, just here and there. Again, it wasn't my thing necessarily. You're going to see a lot of talk today. Luka Doncic, we can talk about how great of an offensive game he had, all things considered, obviously, through context. Luka Doncic is going to have to be better on defense. Last night, and I'm not putting it all on him because it was a group effort. Everyone seemed to be a little bit off. It could have been game 1 jitters. But Kyrie Irving, as much as he's going to have to get up and help this team out, because last night, you can't call so we're talking about the Superman, the Batman. That was kind of the role. As if, okay, Kyrie Irving's not really the Robin. That showed exactly why Kyrie Irving is a number 2. He's not a number 1 on a team, because you cannot have these moments in the postseason. But Luka Doncic, as great as you are on the offensive side of the ball, we sometimes find it hard to be critical of a player when you do know he's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Luka Doncic, many times on the defensive side of the ball, I felt he got lazy. He was leaving these wide open corner shots, these wide open corner threes, which you cannot play the Boston Celtics the same way you did the Oklahoma City Thunder. That was a team full of young guys still trying to figure it out. The Boston Celtics are full of veterans who've been here. Veterans been in these situations. I believe the Boston Celtics now, in their 5th, 6th, Eastern Conference Finals in just the last 7 to 8 years, I believe, something like that. Now their 2nd NBA Finals as a team overall. The Dallas Mavericks are not playing any guys that are scared of the moment. You have got to be focused. Luka Doncic is going to have to try to stay in front of his man as much as he can. Is it hard? Are you asking for a lot? Yes, but that's what happens when you get to into the NBA Finals. You're talking about the best of the best. There are 2 teams left. Do you want it or do you not? Luka Doncic, we've seen sometimes where he can get lazy on covering the corner 3. We've seen it sometimes where he gets sucked into the paint we're talking about collapsing defense and not being able to get back out to his man as fast as he should. This is going to have to be a much better team effort in game 2. There's no other way around it. There are no more excuses that can be made, because now, again, I don't think this is a team in the Boston Celtics that you can go into game 2, let that one slip away, and then say, okay, let's just get home and we're going to win 4. I'm going to say, period. I still personally, in my personal opinion, I have this as now a 7-game series. Because if the Dallas Mavericks are going to win it, I feel like the best opportunity will be to win it in 6, because I'm not sure you want to go back to Boston in a 7-game scenario and try to win on the road. But the Dallas Mavericks, if they're going to get back into this series, to me, I feel like you have to come in here and steal game 2, because last night was a momentum game for the Boston Celtics. You gave them lots of confidence, and at some point, we're talking about your role players. Role players usually play better at home, so I didn't expect everyone to come in firing as for the Dallas Mavericks, but if you're talking about what we're going to need going forward, we need everybody to give a little bit more. I don't care if you're giving 100%. I need you to give 150 now, because the Boston Celtics are a team that are going to be riding off some momentum. Kristaps Porzingis is now comfortable. We'll see exactly if he's going to be starting next game, or if they're going to kind of keep that same momentum of just letting him match up minutes with the Derek Lively. But the Dallas Mavericks came out last night just flat early on, and that is not a mistake you can come in and make and say. I guess you want to say the same mistake that you can come in and make game 2. Once again, the Dallas Mavericks did fall to the Boston Celtics in game 1 of the NBA Finals last night. Boston Celtics 107, Dallas Mavericks 89. Game 2 will be on the 9th, I believe, which is Sunday, 7 p.m. Central Time. It's going to be another road game for the Dallas Mavericks. We need everybody firing. We need everybody aggressive. We need everybody locked in on offense, defense, attention to detail. I am going to say I'm very interested to see what the adjustments are that Jason Kidd looks to make in game 2. Whether it's, again, one thing I saw the Dallas Mavericks, once we got into a situation where we're playing a little bit more zone defense, just outright, I'm going to be curious to see how exactly we're going to be able to run our offense, because I'm going to say Luka Doncic should not be the one that's continuously handling the ball and bringing the ball up court. Give it a switch up. Give it a different look. Kyrie Irving, let him handle the offense a little bit and try to get him rolling. And also, I don't feel like this is a round in a series against a team that we're going to be able to just completely spam those Derek Lively and those Daniel Gafford pick and rolls. I feel like we're going to have a little bit of, I guess you want to say switch up. We're going to have some guard pick and rolls. You let Luka Doncic set some picks for Kyrie Irving and vice versa, because one thing you're going to have to try to do is spread the Boston Celtics out and let your guys go to work. Because again, if you're going to have any success, anything going forward for the Dallas Mavericks, Kyrie Irving is going to have to be a very big part of this offense. We cannot have one of those series we're talking about coming in, scoring, averaging 15 points a game, I believe, against the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is not a series that we're going to be able to get away with it. You have got to come in here, be ready to play, be ready to give everything that you have, because it will be so disheartening and so disappointing to say you put all that work in. You came in here in game 2 of the NBA Finals and just completely laid another egg. And I'm going to say, again, the games start to balance themselves out. And that's what I will give a little bit of optimism. Do not completely quit on this team yet, because I still feel like there were some things the Dallas Mavericks showed. They can play with this team. And I believe Derek Lively said in postgame, I feel like we can play with this team. That first quarter got away from us. You cannot allow that to happen again in game 2. So hopefully the Dallas Mavericks come in locked and loaded and ready. Again, game 2 will be Sunday, 7 p.m. Central Time. The Dallas Mavericks have got to come in with some focus, and I'm going to cross my fingers and hope for the best. We'll see how it goes. I appreciate you guys for all the support. Go ahead and smash that like button. Go ahead and drop those comments down below in the comment section. I want to know you guys' thoughts and opinions on just game 1 and what you feel like the view and the vision is for this team going forward for the remainder of this series. So I appreciate you guys for all the support. As always, go Mavs, and enjoy the rest of your day.